If I asked you to quickly name 3 quintessential American brands, I guarantee at least half of my viewers will say Ford, Harley-Davidson, and Buck knives. These 2 knives kept Buck Company rolling through thick and thin of the economy for 2 generations. Why? It's the balance. Marketing had something to do with it too, but on this channel we don't talk about marketing, nor do we market knives. Don't expect links to any knives that you see in this video anywhere in the video description. What Buck so successfully sell is balance. Balance between performance and price, physical parameters and use case, balance in hand, these type of things. And while some of these things are intangible, the others we can see, feel, and measure in this very video. But I'm not even going to talk about these knives. I haven't even gotten to the knives I'm going to show you. Here are those knives. They are not new model. They are additional colorway for Venerable 662 and 664. I don't have 664 in my possession, but this is my old 662 that I had and used for a while. This is, I believe, the least expensive of their US-made lineup, and this is the most basic version in 662 and 664 line of products. Very basic, 420 HC on the blade, rubberized plastic handles, molded plastic. I think current MAP or minimum advertised price on these is $65, although I have seen them for a little bit less than that. A very, very basic sheath that comes with it is made out of nylon with a plastic liner, and we will talk about sheathology later in the video. Sheathology is totally a science. Now let's talk about what's in the box, starting with the larger of the two, which is a 664. Alpha Hunter Select is the commercial name for this model. It has 3.625 or 92 millimeters long blade, pretty broad, has hollow or concave grind, and aggressively thin edge geometry. So it's going to be a slicer. We'll measure some of these things in a little bit, but let's check out what's in the smaller box. And this model is called Alpha Scout Select. Basically what we have is the mid-size and the smallest knives out of Alpha series lineup. It has 2 7/8 inch or 73 millimeter blade length, and both come with Kydex sheaths and a belt attachment, which we will need to have a serious conversation about. What also comes with these knives, but not included in the box, is a significant price increase comparing to the basic model that I just showed you. And so we'll try to answer the question whether or not you're getting a good value increase in this upgraded spruced up package, or is it going to be a gimmick? In other words, does the new coating on the blade and a Kydex sheath with a belt clip justify spending more of your hard-earned cash? On the positive side, this is actual real Kydex, not some kind of molded plastic. They're really well designed with a drain hole here. So they're really nice as far as Kydex goes, but I'm having a little bit of a trouble is understanding this Tech-Lock style sizable pocket clip in conjunction with those rather small knives. It may be appropriate to carry it vertically or horizontally on a larger knife, but both come with the same size clip, and on this knife it makes a little less sense to me because the clip is basically the same size as the sheath. All of these knives have removable scales, and scales are constructed of a molded plastic and some sort of polymer rubberized plate or overlay here that provides you sturdiness, stability, as well as gription when using it with wet hands or rubber gloves processing the game. When you're using rubber gloves, it makes really good positive contact with this elastomer here, and so I totally get why they did it. The scales are removable, and I am going to remove them because I'd like to test the hardness on the tang of the blade. So they are removable with a T10 driver bit. I use HOTO drivers. I pick them in the lineup because they're the only driver company in the budget space that advertises what steel they use for their bits. So these bits are actually made out of tool steel, and I tested hardness, and it is as advertised, 60 HRC plus or minus 1. I have a link to this driver set on Amazon in the video description. And notice they didn't cheap out, and they actually made the cutouts with a captive feature for the Chicago screws, which makes the screws a little more expensive for them to procure as well. They did not cut the corners from the get-go. Let me take the scales off and I'll be right back. So since on this channel we pay attention to details, notice that all the screws are Loctited. They use the type that lasts through few tightenings. See how it's still blue, and it's a pretty thick layer, but they didn't use too much of it, so you can still disassemble it without using power tools, if you know what I mean. Usually with this type of Loctite, you can get 4 or 5 disassemblies out of it without having to reapply. Now, the reason you would want to disassemble this knife is twofold. If you're processing the game, you can then take the scales off and clean all the nasty stuff from under the scales, or you can actually leave it without the scales and it's still a fully functional knife. I don't know if I would wrap the handle on a hunting knife, but if you're just using it for EDC, it's also an option here. Where I am a little bit worried is, as you know, on my channel, I am very concerned with applying ceramic coatings to the blades, Cerakote, gun coat, etc. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to test the hardness on the uncoated blade and then compare it to the coated blade hardness to see if they blended out well. All right, and so now that the handles are removed, my old knife stands as evidence of why you need removable handles on anything that touches food or game. What we're going to do real quick is measure all these fine edges to determine behind the edge thickness. By the way, they are all hollow grind, even at this budget level. I got 20 thousandths of an inch, hold on, 20 to 21 thousandths of an inch behind the edge here. Here I might pick up on that Cerakote a little, so expect a little thicker here. Yes, so I'm picking up on Cerakote, which adds a little bit of thickness there. And how about the big? I'm really interested because I don't have this model. I'm really interested in it. Yeah, same behind the edge thickness, so 25 thousandths of an inch behind the edge thickness. Now, this is a little bit textured, so potentially it's not going to feel as slicey as uncoated blades. Now, you know me, I'm not a big proponent of coatings, but not because of these minor things, rather because it's really easy to mess up the heat treatment, because most of the blades are coated after they went through the full heat treat cycle, reached the desired hardness, and then with the Cerakote as an example, you end up sticking it into a chamber that is heated up to 250 to 350 Fahrenheit for a couple of hours, and that can actually act as a post-heat treatment tempering. And by the way, I keep hearing people use tempering and heat treat interchangeably. Heat treatment is the process from annealing through austenitizing and then through 1 or 2 tempering cycles. Let me walk you through it. Annealing is relieving the stresses within the steel that comes from the mill. The plate is cold rolled, which builds up deformations and stresses inside the steel. So it's heated up and relaxed. Then comes austenitizing, which is what you see in Forged in Fire when they heat it orange hot and then quench. Quenching stainless steel such as 420 HC is very different from oil quenching that you saw in that show, but I don't want to digress too much. Typically, stainless steel blades are placed between 2 heavy aluminum plates to allow them to cool to about 170, 180 degrees Fahrenheit, and then they can be cryogenized, meaning immersed in something very cold. I believe Boss heat treatment that Buck uses requires liquid nitrogen, which is, in my opinion, the only correct way to cryogenically treat the blade. Only then there comes tempering, where the blades are placed in the furnace again and heat it to somewhere between 300 and 450, depending on the steel Fahrenheit temperatures, and left there for a couple of hours. After the tempering, they're again placed between the aluminum plates and allowed to cool down to 170 to 180 degrees Fahrenheit, and then if it's a good manufacturer, they'll cryogenically treat it one more time. Of course, all blades come out of the heat treatment cycles uncoated, and my plan for the day is to determine whether or not Bach planned for Cerakote by increasing the hardness of uncoated blades before they went through that process. As always, before every hardness test, I verify calibration of my Rockwell tester using this here independently certified calibration block, which is serialized to this document, and it's rated at 62 HRC. So we're going to put it on the anvil and see how she does. I put a lot of thought and work in these videos to deliver as accurate information as I possibly can to you guys, so I hope I earned your like right about now. And subscription if you haven't subscribed yet. Appreciate that. In my tests, I use industry standard equipment now. Doesn't mean that this is an industry standard test, because such tests would require a sample of 5 blades out of every batch. So what I'm trying to say is yours can be harder or softer than mine. The good news is that the heat treatment cycle developed by Paul Boss for Bach is extremely consistent. And I'm reading 62.1, which means I'm really well within the calibration. And so let's start the test with the older version of 632. And if you skip through some parts of the video, this is my older Alpha Scout, which is uncoated. The question we're trying to answer today is Bach pre-planning Cerakoting by heat treating the uncoated blades slightly higher than their typical 57.5 to 58.5 HRC. And having measured several Bach uncoated blades previously, that's where all their fixed blades come at. At this budget level of pricing, I have my doubts, and we'll find out here in a second. Let's pull that lever. Woohoo! I got 60.4. That's unexpected. You know what? I'm going to have to do it again. I did not expect it to be that high. I was expecting around 58, like on the larger blades. That is a surprise, and a good surprise to me. Let's skip through the boring part to get you the result quicker. Yeah, I got 60 now. Very well. All right, so we're going to call it 60.2 average. Next blade going onto the anvil is 662 circa 2026 coated. Skipping straight to the result for your time's sake. Okay, here I got 58 HRC, spot on. Next knife on the anvil is Alpha Hunter Select, model 664 coated. Each test takes about 15 seconds, so I'm skipping through that. We got 57.5 HRC this time. And so if the target is 58, it's still a pretty good tight tolerance. But it's lower than I expected, so I'm going to run one more poke, just to be conservative. Oh, and by conservative, I don't mean while wearing khaki pants, tweed jacket, and elbow protectors. I mean being professional, thorough, and diligent. Let's see what we got here. 57.6. So this is consistent with other fixed blades from Bach that I tested. Did I poke Scout only once? You know what? I don't feel comfortable just poking it one time, so I am going to do again, since all the others got a little more. A few seconds later, and we're about to read the result. And wow, wouldn't you know it, this time is 58.0 HRC, just like the first time. Consistency. Let's check out the sharpness. I'm going to start with this paper towel tube, which is just freestanding there. And getting in with the factory edge is typically difficult. I don't think Buck strops the edge at all. But with a little bit of a swing and push through, it does the job. Let's see the small blade. Same technique here. Yeah, it's reasonably sharp. We'll take a closer look in a second. I don't think this will cut into the paper towel, my typical test. It actually bites in. Maybe a 5 out of 10 score. This has a little bit of a shiny edge, so maybe they actually stropped it on a belt. And by belt I mean on the machine belt sander with the leather strop. Yeah, this one, about the same. So 5 out of 10. So let's talk steel real quick. 420HC is as basic of a stainless steel as it gets in the knife world. But that Boss heat treat takes it to heights unimaginable by other companies. So I marked these blades when I tested them. This one was 57.7 HRC, and I got 57.8 HRC on these 119s. Now these knives were made decades apart. One is a pawn shop find, one is a brand new purchase from Walmart. So regardless of when and for what distribution they were made, they are consistent. And now I got 58 on this one and 57.5 on this one. So very, very consistent, and clearly they pre-planned all their heat treat versus coating and did an outstanding job from this regard. Where they didn't do a particularly great job, or they don't do it on most of their knives, is sharpening. This edge looks like maybe has been stropped. We will look at under microscope in a second. This one is also in the same, doesn't look to be stropped, and there's a little bit of a grind inconsistency over here. But I wanted to show you, when you put it on a fixed angle sharpener, what you can get is a very nice mirror polished edge, because 420HC is extremely sharpenable. And with this edge geometry in concave grind or hollow grind, it will keep the edge pretty long time. Buck aims for 1 deer processing per sharpening. I think it actually could do more, but I could be wrong about that, and you please let me know if you have any experience in that regard. Oh, also let me know if you like seeing me put hardness right on the blade. I'm interested in your opinion on that matter. To take a close look at the edge, I'm going to use this very inexpensive Amazon microscope camera, and it's USB-C compatible, so you can plug it into any USB-C device. It has 3 light settings for brightness, and I use the lowest one to check the blades. Now it has its own app which you can record video or still photos with, and this is the way I set it up is just for the camera. This became an essential tool for my sharpenings because it allows me to get very close and personal with that edge. And what do we see here? There might have been an attempt at stropping the blade, but what you're seeing that appears to you as a sharp edge is actually a burr. I don't know. So it doesn't look too bad. There's a little bit of a hanging burr right here. You can see it. So when you start seeing that on the edge, that means what you're looking at is not actual apex, it's a burr that protrudes past the apex, and it can seem sharp to touch and even cut, but what you're doing when you're cutting with this, what you see here is a shiny line, is actually a burr. When you're cutting, when the material bites into the burr, you end up pulling metal off the edge instead of weakening and letting it pop off, and that can actually damage damage the apex and reduce the longevity of your sharpening. So it's very critical to not have this occurring. So its blade is a little dirty from that paper towel test. Those are the fibers. Yeah, this one, like I said, might have been Strop, but I feel like this is just a burr pushed over the apex. To touch up the edge, I'm going to use this Work Sharp foldable field sharpener, to which I added a stropping leather, just glued it right onto the handle. And today I am just going to touch up, weaken the burr at the edge and touch it up. So it's a very quick and dirty approach here. Let me mark the edge though with a Sharpie. And out of all Work Sharp products, that's the only one that I actually recommend. The other field sharpener that has magnetically removable plates is not a bad product, but this one is eons better, in my humble opinion. So this angle here is set at 24 degrees, and so I'm going to run it to see if I'm picking anything up on the edge. You can see where I'm removing the Sharpie. So I am going to go actually a little bit more acute, like so. And with honing, because I'm not really removing the material, I don't control or count strokes. I go into whatever direction is convenient to me at the moment. And you can start seeing where it's actually removing the telltale paint or marker. There's a little bit of convexity. That's another criticism for Buck. They don't do sharpening choils, and the plunge line actually intersects the edge a little bit too early, and you end up with a shark fin or smiley face, whatever you call it. And they really need to put sharpening choils on their blades, as you saw me do on my older Scout. This one is not terrible, but believe me, when you continue sharpening it, what will happen is either you're going to start getting a lot of convexity, or leaving this portion actually dull, or even worse, if you put it on a wider stone, because of the flatness, it'll end up gouging a little bit farther down the belly. Let's go crazy, shall we? The video is getting long and I accelerated the segment. Basically, I'm applying a significant amount of pressure because I am trying to weaken this burr as much as I can, but then I followed up with a light pressure back and forth single stroke approach here. Call it Neves method, and then switched to the stropping leather. I used Tech Diamond Tools paste made in US, and this will be in the description as well. And now we're looking at the apex after all that. As you can see, that shiny line is disappearing at the apex, which means I am removing the burr and actually having a real apex cut paper. And the result is obvious. It's doing really well. It's now biting and following up the cut. It's not tearing the paper towel at all. It's actually cutting it. If you don't think it's a hard test to do, try it at home, as well as that paper towel tube test. See what your sharpest knife can do. So I actually did the same exact thing with a smaller blade, with a Scout, and as you can see, I got it to a very, very nice apex. And let's test the paper towel cut. Let's see, and boom, just like that. So I think overall this blade was a little better, although it had some goofiness toward the tip. I feel like I took it from 5 out of 10 to 7 or maybe even 8 out of 10. So I bet the $30 and $20 increase on the price is due to this Tech Lock style belt clip. And I'm kind of questioning it, but I don't want to be the judge and the final sort of authority on this. I put the Scout in the Scout configuration, or horizontal carry. It's tucking in nicely. It will project through the garment if you put a garment over it, and kind of looks like a handgun in a holster when covered up. So I don't know, do it at your own risk. I don't think it's the best way to carry a knife, but opinions vary. And I place the Hunter cross draw on my belt, and this is working out really well. By the way, you can remove these clips without taking the belt off, and they did provide like a offset plate seen right here. This is an offset plate that puts it a little bit farther, so if you're wearing thick clothing or sporting a sexy tactical muffin top, that helps. So really not a bad product. Do I want to pay $30 more for that than the basic sheath? For some people, the answer is absolutely yes. For me, I don't know. I can fashion a number of different belt attachment devices myself. Hope this video was helpful to you. And like I said, several websites have these on pre-sale. And if, you know, that sexy Cerakote rocks your boat, you know, secure one now.